Welcome everyone to my YouTube channel. My name is Nick, and I'm happy to bring our first guest to the podcast here, Mr. Kal Dosanjh. So, Kal, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So, I'm just going to start off, and maybe for the viewers, can we get a little bit of background? I know. You're a very distinguished police officer in the force for over 20 years. You have an amazing foundation going here with Kids Play, which we'll get into. You've received numerous awards, including the BC Achievement Community Award back in 21. So yeah, at least to say you've done a little bit for the community here, right? But maybe start from the beginning. Let's go back to Kal's upbringing here and maybe talk to the audience about that.
Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. So I'm an active duty law enforcement officer in addition to being the CEO and founder of Kids Play Foundation. I am coming into my 23rd year as a police officer, and I'm currently in the investigative division. Spent approximately around 15 years in the in an operational capacity as a beat patrol officer in the downtown Eastside. And I think that's where my real journey began, because unfortunately, when I finished university, it was very much one-dimensional academic thinking. It was very insulated. I think I was very naive to the way the world operated. And so when I ended up being thrown into the downtown East Side as a patrol officer, it was trial by fire. And so you learn on the go, and you always got to be thinking on your feet. And I got a chance. It was a very steep learning curve. And so it was then that I began to understand exactly the mechanics of how things work, how people think. And that experience grew naturally, exponentially over time. But once again, it was very restricted thinking. It was very us versus them mentality, the thin blue line, because either it was your police officers and you're responsible for apprehending the suspect. And it was specifically from a law enforcement perspective scope. And by that, what I'm saying is that I didn't think beyond that. I didn't, it was very restricted to in the box kind of thinking. Whereas over time, I began to realize that we need to appreciate and understand the human dimension. It might seem ironic that I'm telling you this, because it almost seems like we're putting the cart before the horse, because we should understand the human dimension before we get on the job. But it doesn't work like that. It's not until you get on the job that you begin to understand exactly who people are and how things work. And also, on account of that, you begin to appreciate that everybody comes from a different set of circumstances, and you need to be empathetic and compassionate to not judge them or critique them, but try to understand them and be your brother's keeper, help out where you can. And so in that respect, I think being in the downtown East Side very specifically really gave me a chance to grow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, being a police officer is definitely one of the more challenging career options out there. It takes a huge mental toll, I'm sure a huge physical toll. So let's speak on that a little bit. As a police officer, you've been doing this for 20 plus years now. How do you keep yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally in check to, deal with these sorts of encounters on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely, it's it's been a tremendous challenge. You know what? This is not something that I accomplished overnight. I think it took a tremendous amount of introspection, self-reflection, a lot of willpower to find that balance in life. When you first get into policing, they make sure that they ask you, say, what are your coping mechanisms? And everyone needs some positive, constructive outlet to ventilate their emotions. Some people find destructive outlets, i.e., turning to alcohol or substance abuse. And it is imperative and crucial that you turn to positive, constructive outlets. And in my case, it's always been meditation and exercise. And so in that respect, when I'm in the gym or I'm meditating and engaging in self-reflection, I think those are moments where I can deal with all the issues, everything that I've seen on the job. And you see a lot. And so in that respect, I think mental health combined with being physically fit is absolutely crucial, especially in this job. And so somebody might be physically fit, but they're completely ignoring the mental health element, mental health aspect. You've got to keep both balanced. And so in that respect, having two young kids at home, being out in the community, having kids play, being on the job, I always have a lot on the go. And it's important that I make time for myself as well. And in that respect, I think the gym and meditation is there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think, meditation is one of those things that is very overlooked. People are like, oh, I just got to sit there and do nothing for 10 minutes. But I think you stated it correctly. You got to find that fine balance, right, between being able to, have the physical component, but also being able to know when to calm yourself down in certain situations. Because I'm sure there's, many situations you come across in your line of work where you could easily get irritated, but if you level up a little bit, it's gonna make the situation worse, right? So yeah, I definitely couldn't agree with that more. Let's stay on the fitness for a sec, because I know exercise and fitness is a huge passion of yours. I know your wife's very big into exercise and fitness as well. So how big of a role did fitness play for you in your life? Like maybe how old were you when you got started, and how important is it for individuals today as we see the obesity crisis get worse and worse here in Canada?
Yeah, you know what? Fitness has played such a pivotal role in my life. And the reason why is because my parents were strong proponents of me, my brother, and I playing sports. And they espoused always the fundamental traditional values of staying connected with your culture, staying connected with religion, staying connected with a higher education, a purpose. And sports was a big component of that because they believed that by being physically engaged with a particular sport or sporting activity, that we stayed away. Sorry, you there?
Yeah.
We stayed away from getting involved in anything destructive, like gangs and drugs and all that. And it worked because there was a lot of values that and attributes that we took from sports: leadership, commitment, dedication, sacrifice. And so in that respect, I think it instilled a lot of good principles that we have been able to take, extrapolate, and translate into other aspects of our life. And so that is the reason why I'm such a big proponent of sports or any kind of physical activity. And that was one of the primary reasons why I created Kids Play, is because when you provide some kind of regiment or some kind of order to a child's life, it gives them a purpose. And more importantly, it's a positive, constructive outlet where they can channel their energy in a positive way versus channeling their energy into something like gangs and drugs. Because with gangs and drugs, I mean, what is gangs at the end of the day? It's a brotherhood slash sisterhood. It's this pseudo subculture family that you find where you fit in and you find acceptance and identity. And you can do the same thing through sports. What are team sports, right? You belong to a team, right? In that respect, it becomes your family and you take care of one another, but in a positive way, right? So that's the reason why when we engage kids through Kids Play and we attach them to sports, and I get asked, like, why sports? Why physical activity? This is why, because there's so many positive attributes you can learn from it.
Yeah, no, and I think, especially from a young age, like you said, right, instilling these quote unquote traits, the leadership, what hard work really looks like, understanding, nothing in life is easy. You got to kind of put in some work to kind of get to where you need to be, right? So I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's a great pivot into the next question I wanted to ask you. So Kids Play, I mean, you've done a heck of a job, my man. Here, over 70,000 members. You've expanded outside of Vancouver. I think you're in Toronto now. You had some recent events here out in India as well. So kudos to you for doing such a great job with this organization. I was reading a piece, and I think you initially got started. You were in the downtown Eastside, and you ended up putting a soccer tournament on, which kind of blew up into what Kids Play is today. So instead of me talking about it, how about from your end? How did Kids Play start, and kind of what's your vision of where you want it to go right now?
100%. So working the downtown Eastside, I noticed a steady stream of kids coming into the open air drug market, engaging with the gangs and drugs down there. So they were using and they were selling. And these were young kids. We're talking about 14, 15, 16. But mind you, these kids came from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, essentially poverty. where they came from subsidized housing and they had never been afforded opportunities to engage in positive constructive outlets like organized sports. And so these kids would come down there, they'd be selling the drugs, we'd be arresting them, throwing them in jail, they'd get pushed through the criminal justice system and spewed out on the other end to re-engage in that perpetual cycle of violence. And I just found that very bothersome because as far as I was concerned, we weren't part of the solution, we were part of the problem. In essence, I mean, if you think about it, that system was broken because there was so much more that could have been done for these kids along the way. When I say system, I'm talking about society as a whole. Is that society as a whole was quick to point a finger at these kids and say, well, you know what, you should know better. You're responsible for your actions and now you're going to be held accountable. But question is, I mean, where did they get the audacity to do that? Because who really stepped it up and took these kids by the hand and guided them and taught them positive values, taught them good principles, or provided them an outlet? Nobody. Now, if you weren't willing to do that, then you don't also have the right to point your finger at these kids and say, well, you should know better. So it was one situation after the next, one incident after the next, and I just had enough. I was like, you know what, there's something that we could be doing about this, because as an officer, I have a uniform and I've been given a responsibility, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But as a member of society, I feel that from a humanitarian perspective, that we carry a moral burden of obligation to be doing more for these kids. And so there was a couple of incidents that happened where I finally just had enough, drew the line in the sand, and approached my inspector, asked for some nominal funding. I got $500, which wasn't a lot back then. We're talking about 2006, 2007, back in the day. But I took that money and I put on a one-day soccer tournament for these kids. And it was a blast. You know what, turned out to be tremendously successful. Invited about 150 kids from the downtown Eastside school catchment area. And these kids came out and they had so much fun. We handed them trophies, certificates, medals. You know what, we played soccer with them all day. And these same kids that were hardened and skeptical and jaded, that probably would have swore at an officer passing by, were now giving us high fives and hugs and saying, thank you for your time. And mind you, this was done on our own time. These were off-duty officers, myself included, that we went on our day off to do this. And so when I saw the reaction from these kids, it just reinforced my convictions, my resolve that I'm going to do more for these kids. So every single year that program grew exponentially, so much so that within 7 years, we went from Strathcona Park to running the tournament at BC Place with over 2,000 kids, free of cost.
Wow, yeah, no, phenomenal. And obviously still going. Originally you started, sorry, you said back in 2006? That was when Kids Play came about?
No, that's when I was running programs for the Police Athletic League in my respective department. And then Kids Play came about in 2015. That's when I, based on the success of PAL program and what I was running here at the department, I decided, you know what, why not create a foundation? And so we inaugurated Kids Play Foundation back in 2015.
Phenomenal, yeah, and obviously going strong. You guys do a ton of great stuff for the community. So obviously keep up the great work, and any way I can help out in the future, you know, I'm here to lend a helping hand. Now, to stay on the topic with kids, and I'm sure you can relate to this, being a parent. One challenging part a lot of parents are finding these days is the social media, right? I'm sure when you were growing up, you know, I mean, social media wasn't even really around. You're outside, you're playing, you're doing all this stuff. Now we got, you know, kids on phones, on tablets, you know, new video games coming out every other day. So you as a parent, how, you know, what kind of advice can you give to other parents out there that are like, you know what, I totally agree with what you're saying, Kal. I think, you know, my kid would benefit from getting out, joining a sports team, but I can't get them off the damn iPad or the phone, or, you know, when they come home, all they want to do is get on YouTube or play these video games. So what are your suggestions around social media and you know, do you think it's having a negative impact on society today?
You know what? It's been said that everything in moderation. So we can't get around the fact that this is our world. That's the state of affairs today, is that these digital devices are out there. And as a matter of fact, technology is going to advance, and there's going to be more devices that are going to become available, more new technologies. They're going to become available to kids. So you can't suppress it, you can't get rid of it. So how do you embrace it? And so in that respect, I think as a parent, we have a sole responsibility of making sure that there's appropriate restrictions in place where you establish timelines and rules going forward. But you also make sure that the kid's life is balanced. because a lot of parents will come up to me and say, you know what, I can't handle this anymore. My 8-year-old is out of control. And when I say, you know what, I don't want, get off the computer or get off the video game, they say, no, we don't know what to do. And, and I think to myself that, you know what, you're the parent, you're in charge, you're sitting behind the steering wheel. It's your responsibility where you have to establish those rules. So you're not going to deprive that child of that opportunity where, I mean, if they want to play a video game or they want to watch TV or do anything, that's fine. Nothing, no issues with that. But keep it healthy where you have your 1 hour or 2 hours that's established for that. But the other time, you still have to play your sports or you still have to engage in some kind of activity, positive recreational activity, whether that's dance or whether that's art or music or something culturally related. You're engaging in some kind of positive constructive activity, and combined with the fact that you're making sure that they're doing their homework on time. So it needs to be this fine balance that you have to establish so that these kids operate, that there are certain rules in place. And I'll tell you, kids operate remarkably when rules are established, because I mean, they might not appreciate it at the time, but they'll definitely appreciate it afterwards.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit of tough love goes a long way, eh?
100%.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk to you a little bit about community, because I've seen other interviews with you and read some pieces about how important community is, how important giving back is. You've spoken a little bit about your upbringing and what your parents instilled within you. I think today it's more important than ever, just with the divisiveness that has gone on, whether it's politics, whether it's COVID. But maybe talk to me a little bit about the importance of giving back. Well, as a citizen, like you said, it's important to give back to the community. So what does that mean to you, and what are things that an average everyday Joe can start doing today?
You know what, Nick? Everybody has the capacity to get involved with something. If you think about it, like, it's just that old proverb. All of us have time, talent, or treasure. One of the three. And I mean, God's good grace that, I mean, someone might possess all three. Point being is that everyone has something to give, and you just have to find what it is, and you have to contribute in your own way. Because I think I was just having this conversation earlier with somebody. It's just, what separates us from animals if, I mean, we don't engage in some kind of humanitarian effort? Because even animals or insects are capable of just taking care of themselves. I mean, being human beings, we have a higher conscience, and we're capable of feeling empathy and compassion for others. And part of that is possessing some level of humanitarianism, where we're here to take care of one another. I mean, in essence, I mean, that's a civilized society. I mean, if all of us as educated professionals just did our thing and just took care of ourselves, then what's our purpose? Everybody can make money, right? I mean, if all we're doing is just engaging materialism and buying expensive things for ourselves, or just going on expensive trips, and that's all we do our entire lives, then that's not a life that's fulfilled. And so find your purpose and get out there and give back, and you'll find true self-fulfillment.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better. And I think, especially with the younger generation, we're at a quick jump to just, make the money or find that job that makes the most money, and not necessarily the most passionate or purposeful about it. But it's not until you get down to your later years of understanding that, hey, this is something I'm going to be doing long term. So why not enjoy it? And then once you do find your purpose, find ways to use that to give back to your community, rather, like you were saying. So I definitely preach those words as well. Kal, I know in the interest of time here, we're going to wrap this up. I appreciate you taking the time of your day to do this interview with me. I do have 3 last questions that I like leaving the audience off with here, and this kind of gives me a little bit more of a sense into your mind. So the first one is a book recommendation. What would a book recommendation you'd say be to anyone out there?
Oh boy. You know what? I'm going to say The Alchemist.
Yes, great book.
Yeah, that had a big impact on me, because you know what? Just follow your flow in life and you'll find your purpose.
Absolutely. One quote you live by.
I believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
I like that. And And lastly, and this one, you know, whether it's an individual that's still alive or someone that's no longer with us, someone that you'd like to sit down with and maybe pick their brain and do an interview for yourself personally.
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, really good. You just watched a documentary on that man, and wow, some of the things that that man's seen. That you know, I'm sure the stories that he'd share with you over for a glass of wine, you'd be able to sit there for hours and hours. So, once again, Kal Dosanjh, appreciate your time. Again, if you are interested in helping Kal out with his foundation, please go ahead and check that out. I'll make sure I'll link your kids play in the YouTube link below. And on social media, they can find you. Is it just at Kal Dosanjh?
Yep, you got it. You're on social media, so it's Kal Dosanjh on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You got it.
Perfect.
And
Instagram, awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure we link that. Once again, Kal, thank you very much, and we get to chat again down the road.